And welcome to our Talk Politics Midweek Roundtable, brought to you by Talk Business and Politics, as well as KATV. I am joined today by KATV's lead Capitol reporter, Janelle Lilley, Dr. J. Barth with Hendrix College, Clint Reed with Impact Management Group. You guys are here because, not you, but you guys are here because we just rolled out some new polling with Talk Business, Hendrix College, and with Impact Management Group. We were testing some things about the internet polling versus landline polling. So tell me, let me say this. In theory, younger people are on the internet in terms of survey results. It tends to be more African American and it tends to lean more Democrat. What did our polling show?
Well, it definitely got the younger piece. We were able to get some younger folks via the internet, and definitely in terms of African Americans. And in terms of their issue stances, especially on the private option, things like that, they tended to skew in a more pro-private option direction. So at least ideologically, there does seem to be some signs that they're a little bit more progressive crew among Arkansas internet users.
Exactly what I took away. The private option questions, all three questions, the internet online respondents that we had were very much in favor. So I took that to be very moderate, more progressive. So that was the big takeaway for me overall.
As a political reporter, Janelle, do you think it's time to trust internet polling?
Well, let me just say, I literally don't know anyone in my life that has a landline. I don't know anyone. And maybe that's just a generational, I cannot think, I think my grandpa has one. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's hard to not, I wonder at what point we look at it and think that that's a skewed poll because of the demographics and who we're talking about.
I tried to use my landline this morning and I realized it was dead. And I think it had been, I mean, it was working, but the phone was dead. So it was like, you know, that shows how little it's a part of our lives.
Still a lot of people in rural Arkansas, older generation, use landlines. So it's still a significant part, but I'm glad we're doing this because it's a direction that survey research has to go. And I feel like the cutting edge is there.
It's easy. It's easy to click through an online poll. We do it all the time, you know, and it's not taxing on someone. Actually, in some ways, I would think that psychologically, most people would rather do that because you don't have to actually talk to another person and like.
The key is data integrity, though.
Yeah,
it is, and I think in reality, what we're going to find from this is that you've got to use a whole variety of methods to touch the array of folks who are communicating in really different ways. And there's some folks are more comfortable on a landline, some folks are more comfortable on the internet, some folks are more comfortable on a cell. We're going to have to try a lot of different things.
And that's just text polls from now on.
Well, and that's what's going to be exciting about this experiment. I think we're going to be able to figure out what does the Arkansas electorate really look like.
So for over the course of the next year, for those who haven't been paying attention, the Impact Management Group, Hendrix College, and Talk Business and Politics are going to be using some of these experimental methods and really kind of testing the boundaries to see what we can trust and what we can't trust. All right, Janelle, you get the next question.
All right, this is a hot button issue around the Capitol. It's very insider baseball, but there is a bill filed that would restrict the use of state money to pay for lobbying efforts from anyone using state money. Now, there is a caveat in the bill that a foundation could raise the money, could be privately donated money, and you could hire a lobbyist. But this specifically impacts a lot of colleges who send people, lobbyists to the Capitol to work on their behalf. I just want to get some reaction on this bill.
Well, I think that caveat is a big door that can be driven through, and because clearly, you know, the monies could be transitioned over there, and so I think it's, you know, like some governmental ethics things that we see out there, it's a little bit more window dressing than reality when push comes to shove.
I think it's important that there's a good balance there. Look, lobbyists, and I am a registered lobbyist in full disclosure, I think they get a bad name, but I think they do a great service to the people they represent, whether it's public or private. It's all about relationships, and if you have those relationships, they can pay great dividends. And obviously, it has to be done. You know, there has to be a good balance, and I think the bill will end up being there.
Any concern that you're basically hurting the schools, like state institutions, from having a direct line to legislators by limiting this?
Yeah, I think that concern is real. And I think that will be a part of the balance of what comes out of it.
You know, one of the things I've always noticed too from my days going back into the early 90s in the governor's office is the governor's office has liaisons, less lobbyists on staff, and they're state funded too. Yeah, they really do. Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of, they're lobbying for the bills of a particular elected official, and they're not going to be prohibited. So yeah.
And you know, my view is I agree with Clint entirely. I mean, lobbying, it's First Amendment protected. Sure. It's a really important part of the process. It's just really important that there be a lot of disclosure about who's doing it, who's paying for what,
that's right,
et cetera.
All right, Clint, you get to go next.
My question is, we've got the big things done: private option, tax cuts. Now we're getting into prisons and highway funding. If you had to prioritize highway funding or prisons, both very important, but where would you start?
I think you're leaving workforce education out too. That's going to be another big budget issue there.
In a very short period of time. You've got just several weeks before the bills are, the last day to file a bill, and then we've got April 10th as the cutoff date for the session.
They could definitely get done with their work and go home next week if they wanted to.
There's not a lot brewing right now. I mean, if I had to guess, I would think people want to talk about workforce education more than they really want to talk about the other two, just because it's something that, who doesn't want to say that this is what they're working for?
Well, they say jobs is their number one priority.
Exactly,
in the session,
and so that's something that I think if we're looking at it in terms of we've gotten through some really hard stuff, let's put a bill together that we can all rally behind. I really feel like that's going to be the next priority. Although I will say, as far as, you know, what needs to really be tackled, lots of people talking prisons, very mumbles around the Capitol. Everyone's waiting to find out when this bill is going to drop, what it's going to look like as far as, you know, regional facilities. Are we going to build a new prison? And so we're kind of anxiously awaiting, and I think the AP actually, Andrew Jamillo put out a piece on it the other day just about the things that still have to be done, and that being number one on that list.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, and I would couch it as you know, justice reform and prisons, because I do think that, you know, some new methods of dealing with nonviolent criminals has to be part of the package. I mean, this simply cannot be done with new buildings. That's the expense is too great.
And there's a drug court bill that has been filed.
Exactly.
To your question, though, Clint, I would say that transportation funding is probably third on that list of three, even though I kind of co-opted your question by throwing workforce education in there. But I know that there's some activity that's about to break on that, and that is going to be a big topic of discussion.
I think it just highlights the point to my question was, you have budget constraints that obviously are being winnowed daily. You have some very big issues that are still out there that are important.
Yeah, I've gotten the hint too that maybe highway funding comes and gets revisited in a special session either later in the year, maybe even next year sometime, but we'll see. Not enough to read the tea leaves.
Yeah, I haven't heard that.
Jay?
Well, and I think with transportation, you have some more flexibility in terms of funding streams than some of these
That's
others. Right. So my question, we saw a bill filed this week in terms of looking at the selection of judges rather than the election of high-level state court judges. And so my question is it going anywhere? And if it did make the ballot, would it pass?
Representative Shepard is a thoughtful legislator. He's a smart guy. Obviously, he's put some thought into this. My opinion is, I believe that direct democracy is the best. I mean, electing judges, I think it's worked well. We've got a great slate of Supreme Court justices, very diversified. I don't think we should be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. That's been my take. It was my take on the show a couple of weeks ago. So I think it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of sausage to be made in that process. But I think Shepard's been thoughtful in how he's doing it. So it'll be interesting to see. I think voters have an opportunity to choose, and they should be able to choose.
What do you think?
You know, we did talk about this a few weeks ago, and as much as I hate giving my opinion, and I don't really have a strong belief on this, I just think that you're going to be in trouble either way. I mean, like, the thing is, you worry about direct influence, you know, maybe with campaign donations from an election, but at the same time, if it's an appointed position, then you worry about that too. So I would really wonder what issues we're clearing up by doing this, like, and see some data behind that. You know, if there's an actual issue, you know, maybe address that rather than
a solution in search of a problem.
Well, I think there's a lot of bills that are solutions in search of problems, but I wouldn't necessarily classify this as one of those. I just think that, you know,
you sound like a law student in the making. Janelle. This is true. So, yeah, I didn't give my opinion. I think that one's going to have rough sledding. I think when you start taking the ability for someone to elect a judge away. And it's just the Supreme Court justices. It doesn't touch the other ones there. That's a fundamental change, and I'm just not sure that you don't get into the pot of people already mistrusting politicians and what's going on, and you look at really some of the sentiment that's out there right now. They're going to get big, some of these folks are going to get big raises. I think that's going to be very negative in terms of the voting public, even though they don't have the control over that. You throw all that into the mixture, and I think you got a tough
wasn't on our topics,
there.
but that is one of the biggest misnomers, just as someone who is reporting. I mean, we get on our Facebook wall constantly, they gave themselves a raise, they're giving themselves, and it's one of those issues that you're like, I don't know how clear I can explain this to you, but this is not what's happening. And I think as frustrating as it is for a reporter who's trying to, clearly communicate what's going on in the legislature to our public, it's got to be frustrating for the legislators as well.
And term limits in there too, with the removal of that, that change in the law as well. So that's adding into the mix. All right, we could go on for longer, but I think they have promotions that they want to cut here, so our time is up. Clint Reed, Jay Barth, Janelle, Lilley, thank you all three for being here. It's a lot of fun. We'll do it again. More to come. All right. And you can keep up with the latest business and political headlines at talkbusiness.net as well as KATV.com. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Business and Politics on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Thank you for watching.